There you go. Thank you everyone for joining me today. Again, my name is Diana Campos, Operations Manager for Los Angeles Community Garden Council. I've been with the organization since 2017, and I recently graduated from the UC Master Gardener program and class of 2020. So I got a little bit of the in-person slash virtual classes. So a lot of this presentation is based on the teachings of the UC Master Gardener program and also just other best practices that other managers and master gardeners have shared with me. So I do hope you appreciate and you get a lot out of this workshop. I put a little bit of time and effort into this, and I will share the presentation with you all at the end of this workshop. And I also plan to share all the links that I mentioned as well. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right. So, and I'm also going to turn off my camera just so that I can feel comfortable breezing through this. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So introduction, this is what we'll be discussing today. So first is the plant water cycle and evapotranspiration, which is like now my favorite word. Plant water use, drought resistance and use of native plants, soil water holding capacity and water movement in soil, drainage and depth of water penetration, watering systems for gardens, best management for irrigation, watering management for specific plants, keeping plantings alive under drought of water restrictions, benefits and risks of using Graywater, and last will be protecting water quality in urban landscapes. There will be an opportunity to ask questions, maybe between slides, but ideally, please save your questions for the end. So let's talk about the plant water cycle. So first, due to prolonged droughts, the uncertainty of future water supplies and state legislation regulating urban landscapes water allocations, it is critical that gardeners implement sound water management practices. This ensures the health and vitality of California's urban planting. Adopting information and techniques described here in this presentation, we hope that this enhances water conservation, reduces water waste, and improves the quality of landscape planting. So understanding the water cycle of plants is useful for developing effective watering schedules and for recognizing and correcting signs of drought. So the primary driving force behind the entire plant water cycle is the sun. So the first tip would be solar orientation is helpful when planning your garden. Aim for a south-facing garden. Although it's not the best position for all plants, some may need shade to prevent wilting. So evapotranspiration. When water evaporates through the soil, it leaves minerals behind and leaves wick and leaves salt behind. It becomes super difficult for minerals after a while for plants to get water and salt burning because salt has accumulated on the soil. So transpiration pulls salt down, I'm sorry, I'm reading something, I'm kind of getting stuck here. So it pulls salt down and water from below the surface through the plants. So this sometimes causes salt buildup. So evaporation of water from the soil surface and transpiration from the leaves surface is referred to as evapotranspiration, otherwise ET. And ET rates among plant species and the process itself is driven by environmental factors like sunlight, temperature, humidity, and wind speed. ET is expressed in units of depth or volume per day, week, month, or year. And it usually follows this bell curve through the year with the highest rate occurring in midsummer, the lowest in midwinter, and intermediate rates in spring and fall. So water cycle of a plant. Water enters the soil during precipitation, like rain, snow, etc., and as well as irrigation. Water and nutrients in the soil enter the plants through the roots and are transported to their shoots via the xylem. The water conducting portions of the vascular system that enters from the roots to the leaves. So this is the xylem here. Eventually, water is returned to the atmosphere in the form of water vapor, a process called transpiration. Water vapor exits plant leaves through the stomata, the tiny pores found on the surfaces. Water moves through a plant from gradient of high water potential in the roots, where water is absorbed, to low water potential in leaves, where transpiration occurs. So plant water use. So evapotranspiration is often referred to as the water use of a plant or a planted area, since it represents water lost by transpiration and evaporation. And plants typically require nearly 100% of ET on a frequent basis after planting until they are established. Once established, plants can be maintained on considerably less water than the ET rates require. And for the most part, well-watered plantings can use enormous amount of water, most of which is lost to the atmosphere through ET. So on a hot summer day like today, some well-watered trees can lose 100 gallons of water or more through this process. And most plant species require the replacement of large portion of water lost in continual normal growth and development. So here we're going to talk, when I went a little ahead, drought resistant and the use of native plants. So because of California's limited water supply and a desire to conserve urban water, interest has increased over the past several years in the use of drought resistant plants. While many native plants possess drought resistant traits and require limited supplemental irrigation, once established, many non-native plants also thrive on relatively low amounts of water. Both native and introduced plants require water on a regular basis until they're established. And some native plants must receive more water in planted landscapes than they would in their native habitat to maintain an acceptable appearance and performance. Adaptation of a plant to urban settings depends on the ability to tolerate urban conditions regardless of its water requirement. And the most important consideration is not whether they are native to California, but whether they will grow well in a given climate and environment. So planting a combination of climatically appropriate native and introduced plant material diversifies the California plant palette. And drought resistant reflects the ability of a plant to withstand less than optimal water supplies due to adaptive avoidance mechanism. Some plants adapt, others close stomata to avoid water loss by producing extensive root systems to access additional water. Some possess morphological characteristics that prevent water loss, and others produce thick cuticle layers of waxy leaves or small surface areas such as needles. Theodore Payne has a great list of native plants, and I will share a couple of links of some lists of drought tolerant plants. And I will add those links to the chat. Okay. Okay. I hope everyone can see that. Soil water holding capacity and water movement in soil. A well-aggregated soil has a wide range of pore sizes, including macro pores large enough to allow optimal drainage and root penetration. 1 inch of irrigated water will soak down to different depths depending on how heavy your soil is. So 12-inch deep in sandy soil, 9 inches deep in loamy soil, but only about 3 feet in clay soil. Plant root zones generally reach from 2 to 12 inches down, but roots for larger plants like tomatoes may reach about 3 inches down. So here, soil type and soil texture largely determines the water holding capacity of soil and its ability to drain adequately. Soil with high clay content absorbs water slower than sandy soil, but holds twice as much water and does not need to be watered as often. However, clay soil drains slower than other soils and is more likely to become waterlogged and oxygen deprived. The initial entry of water into the soil is called infiltration. Water infiltration is largely determined by soil properties such as organic matter content, structure, and texture. Other factors include surface cover, like plants, mulch, bare soil. How readily water moves downward through the soil profile is called permeability or percolation. Permeable soil conducts water effectively and is not layered or compacted. Organic matter solves most of these issues. So the more soil organic matter you have, it sponges up water. If organic matter is high for vegetables, this usually cures drought issues within vegetables. And if it hasn't decomposed properly and roots don't have a choice where to go, that's how usually organic matter helps with soil. One reading suggestion that many told me to share is Gardening with Less Water by David Bainbridge. I guess that book shares other techniques on watering with less water. So here are some watering systems to consider, especially when wanting to conserve water. So watering plants using the Oya watering system. This is when one uses a terracotta vessel to water plants. Oyas must be buried deep near the plants, like in the image to the left. Once filled with water, you cover it and the roots will attach to it because they're seeking the water. Another watering system is the wick watering system or capillary action. It's the ability of a liquid to flow in narrow spaces without the assistance or even in opposition to external forces like gravity. So in the picture to the left, there's a bucket which acts as a reservoir, and the cotton strings, which in this image are shoelaces, act as the wicks. And if you add weights to the end, it helps to keep the strings down. And last is the tank watering system. So the tank serves as a well or reverse osmosis system, and the tank must be elevated above the plant so that the pressure from gravity can help release water to the plants. This is like a drip-like system that can then be attached to the tank along with a timer, and this can be replicated into a smaller scale for container gardens too. Okay. And we're halfway through. Watering systems for gardens. So another one is drip irrigation. Most drip irrigation systems should utilize relatively inexpensive cartridge type filters, as emitters or drip holes tend to become plunged with tiny particles or salts contained in the water supply. Drip irrigation devices range from simple perforated tubes and soaked hoses to sophisticated self-cleaning individual emitters. This can be successful or unsuccessful depending on the capacity of the community garden and has the watering needs of based on the watering needs of individual growing spaces. So I want to note that most established plants perform best and remain healthiest when the root zone is allowed to dry between watering to approximately 50% of the soil's water holding capacity. So that's another tip. Okay. And these are Best management practices for irrigation. So one, create a hydro zone, place plants with similar watering requirements together to be watered on the same schedule. Healthier plants, less water waste. Two would be to apply the right amount of water and hand water plants if needed. It also helps to time how fast plants absorb water to avoid overwatering. And this usually tells you if you need to examine your soil texture and amend if high in clay or sand. The fourth tip would be to water plants deeply and infrequently. Wet the soil of established plants to just beyond the depth of their root system and allow the soil to dry partially between irrigations. This prevents root disease. Number 5 is water early in the morning. This reduces evaporative water loss and minimizes leaf mold and mildew. Number 6, provide regular maintenance of irrigation system as seasons change. 7, apply mulch 2 to 4 inches on top of soil surface. This reduces water evaporation, minimizes weed competition, and improves soil structure. So this is a watering formula that I got off the Master Gardener book. So for every 1 gallon of water, adds 1.6 inches of water over 1 square foot of dry ground and wets that area to a depth of roughly 1.5 inches. And in the notes, it also said that 0.62 of a gallon covers 1 inch depth below. And it's a 1 square foot of dry ground. So watering management for specific plants. So annuals and perennials. So if you see the ET rates on in the parentheses, it's about 75 to 100 water, 75 to 100% evapotranspiration. So irrigation for established plantings can be done 1 or 2 times per week during cool weather. Enough water to re-wet the root system should be applied during each irrigation. For vegetables, watering a plant depends on the time of the year when it's growing. Irrigate vegetable seeds, seedlings, and recent transplants frequently through establishment to promote a uniform stand of plants. For fruit crop, newly planted fruit crops require frequent, thorough watering, while established plants perform well with infrequent deep irrigation. For mature trees, they should receive enough water to wet most of their root zone every 10 to 14 days in the summer. And trees require less frequent irrigation in the spring and fall and often need little or no irrigation in the winter. Okay. So keeping plantings alive under drought and water restrictions. Grow plants during the designated time of year. Prevent overwatering winter crops during summer and vice versa. We have a Southern California planting guide on our website, and I'll add the link shortly to the chat. And this lists all the plants that are within the season, depending on when you start growing the seed, sorry. So some symptoms of water stress. We have wilting and drooping leaves that do not return to normal by the evening, and usually occurs on hot, dry days. This already happened to a lot of my flowers. Adding additional water during the day is not necessary, and in some cases may prove detrimental by depriving roots of oxygen. Curled or chlorotic yellow leaves that may fold or drop, or foliage that becomes grayish and loses its green luster. New leaves that are smaller than normal. So these are symptoms of water stress. Other causes of symptoms mimicking water stress are vascular diseases caused by fungi and other pests and diseases that damage plant vascular or root system. So check moisture in the root zone to determine whether wilting is due to inadequate moisture. Water-stressed plants must be watered during early stages of water deficiency to prevent irreversible damage. It is crucial to check plants regularly for symptoms of drought, preferably during the afternoon when symptoms are more evident. And now I'm going to take that to talk about the LADWP water rate increases for community gardens. So if you're a member of one of our partner gardens, you've been definitely affected by the changes in water rates. So in 2016, DWP proposed Schedule F raised water bills up to 289% over 5 years, and Schedule F was the schedule that most community gardens were under at that time. So what did that mean? A $1.37 gardener member pay per unit of water ended up becoming about $5.32 by 2019. Rates increase every July of said year. In 2020, there was a pause due to the pandemic, but since then the hikes have continued, and rates are currently at 7 per cubic feet of water. And I actually double checked this, and it's closer to $8. Gardens are now under Schedule C. It's no different. It's just the switch around that DWP did. These rates are negatively affecting our gardens and farms located in low income, low socioeconomic neighborhoods. These gardens are located in areas considered food deserts, gardens that provide services to immigrant and communities of color. Aside from water conservation and education efforts like this lovely workshop, policy change is strongly needed. And right now, DWP announced phase 3 water restrictions for community gardens. So this is as of June 1st. Hand watering with a self-closing nozzle and drip irrigation of a food source are allowed any day before 9 a.m. or after 4 p.m. So that's the current restriction. And a food source by DWP is referred to vegetation that is considered edible, such as fruits and vegetables. There's no specific time limit for these irrigation measures, but customers are reminded that any water use resulting in excess or continued water flow or runoff onto adjoining sidewalks, driveways, streets, gutters, or ditches is always prohibited. I will add some links to more information regarding the DWP water rate restrictions. So benefits and risks of using Graywater. Using Graywater to irrigate landscape plants can conserve water and electricity and reduce water bills by recycling water otherwise destined for a wastewater treatment plant. And irrigation can happen via drip irrigation or collection of manual distribution. Potential risks should be carefully evaluated before deciding whether to install a Graywater recycling system. This is due to household cleaning products infiltrating systems, which can injure or even kill plants at high dosage over a short period of time. So if you are considering Graywater, consider using eco-friendly household cleaning products before installing this type of irrigation, because chemicals can damage humans and the environment. Make sure you protect your skin when you're testing out Graywater and prevent Graywater mixing with well or clean water. And last, protecting water quality in urban landscapes. So best management practices to prevent and reduce water pollution in urban landscapes. Do not apply water faster than the soil can take it up. Apply amendment soil that is extremely high in clay or sand to help reduce runoff and deep percolation. Keep pet waste, pesticides treated plant debris out of gutters and storm drains. Use integrated pest management practices which stress insect disease and weed prevention rather than the use of pesticides. Do not apply more fertilizer than it is absolutely needed. Use fertilizers containing slow release or water soluble sources of nitrogen. Prevent soil erosion by using mulch and dense planting ground covering. So surface water and groundwater contaminants from pesticides, fertilizers, and other chemical use in and around California landscapes can lead to polluted creeks, rivers, oceans, largely during runoff from heavy rain and poor irrigation practices. So please properly dispose of household chemicals and paints through your local jurisdiction. So that's the last of our slide. Thank you very much. And please allow me a minute to stop recording. Let me see.